Welcome back to First Up, the first stop in your busy day. It's just about 20 minutes after 6 o'clock, and we're heading into the first of our news-making segments this morning with a focus on the agriculture sector. We've got World Food Day coming up this weekend, on Saturday actually, and here to dive into that issue, along with all the others impacting our agriculture sector here in Trinidad and Tobago, we've got the Education and Research Officer for the National Food Crop Farmers Association, Mr. Norris Deonarine. Good morning and welcome back.
Morning, Jesse.
We need to
morning,
probably
Faz.
organize some quarters, maybe a cot and some doubles for you because you're here so often, kind of a thing, right? You got your coffee?
The little perks, I got my coffee.
All right, well, that's good. At least I get something,
I get something.
From here. But World Food Day, you know, some people say, well, you know, what is the significance of that? At the end of the day, is farmers complaining about everything and digging out people with high prices? So what does World Food Day mean, or what should it mean to the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, Faz and our listeners and viewers out there, it's even more imperative that we grasp the understanding of what World Food Day is and what it stands for. The theme for this year is United Against Hunger, and this is the general slogan worldwide. After all, more than 145 countries have ratified this. It was under the United Nations and the Food and Agriculture Organization that this issue about World Food Day and generally about food in the world was adopted. And you know, in its theme, we have to go back to some of the roots, the genesis of everything then. And a number of years ago, back in 1979, the FAO and the UN adopted the Peasant Charter, and it is something that we are trying to get our government as well to adopt. Now, don't mind that has happened since 1979. There are a number of things that still has not been implemented, and we need for our government that is in power right now to adopt this Peasant Charter.
Why would you want to adopt a Peasant Charter? Think about the name Norris Deonarine. Isn't a peasant somebody who poor and catching the tail? So in other words, you're saying that the United Nations have no problem with what they call a Peasant Charter, which basically means this is the charter, this is the rules and regulations by which poor people will be operating. So in other words, the agricultural community should always be poor and catching the tail then.
No, this is why we always say ordinary people, farmers, people in generally worldwide, we have not taken a vow of poverty. In fact, we are involved in one of the most important areas of human survival.
What should be the priority? What should be the priority of a farmer? To make a living or to feed people?
The priority of our farmers in Trinidad and Tobago is to provide food for the nation. This is our #1 priority.
You believe that, Norris? Or is it, and I'm not saying anything wrong with it, no. Because everybody else looks to make a living.
Yes.
Everybody looks to make a profit. Nobody wants to live in poverty all the time. But what is wrong with saying that I am in agriculture to make a good living?
Nothing is wrong with that, because we have to be able to feed ourselves. If we are to say that our country is truly independent, that we are heading towards all these slogans like developed country status, all these different plans that have been outlined by the G8 nations, you know, 2020, all these different things are things that have been adopted in the world today. But what has been happening is these necessary mechanisms have not been implemented, particularly in a country like ours.
Why should we implement them? Let me tackle you again. Let me tell you why. Because you talk about the G8 nations, you talk about the G20 nations, you're talking about developed nation status. Yet you have other countries, India, Brazil, China, other countries who are not part of the G8, they might be part of the G20, but they are trying to change.
They are who we term BRIC.
Brazil, Russia, India, China. And again, the term BRIC is sort of like saying that this is a building block economy, is not as advanced. There are certain subliminal messages. When the West puts slogans on countries, BRIC countries, they're a little backward still. But the point I'm trying to make, Norris Deonarine, why are we following dictates in agriculture? Because You look at the EPA, the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union.
Yeah.
Many people in the labor movement feel that that is not in the best interest of people in Trinidad, of farmers in Trinidad and
Yeah, I've heard it
Tobago.
described
Why should we
as
be following that?
I have heard the EPA described as an ant on the foot of an elephant, trying to battle up in this whole situation. Because after all, for us, these countries we're talking about are already advanced countries in their development. And we ourselves, as a country, as a region, we should be always aiming to develop ourselves, to put ourselves in a position where we would not be at a disadvantage, particularly in the area of food and in the area, I mean, look what's happening right now in the country then in terms of where food inflation is.
Yes.
It's like around 16%. Are we going to continue in this vein all the time in our lifetime?
But isn't that good for the farming community to have high prices?
Not really. It's
Why?
not. It's a two-way. You ever hear the talk, one handle clap?
Right.
Right? The thing is that if it is we do not secure our local domestic agriculture sector, then we're going to have people from all different avenues and dictates in the wider life of Trinidad and Tobago, talking about food inflation, talking about the high prices of food, and we are not putting the necessary mechanisms and creating the necessary conditions to reach there. And then we would, if we look at the supermarkets in Trinidad and Tobago, you know, this is why we say farmers and our local farmers cannot be blamed for this unnecessary high food inflation, because over 70 to 80% of the food, when you walk into a supermarket, you will realize that is from a foreign source. So how could this 70 to 80% be pushed aside easily, and fingers could be pointed at the local domestic agriculture sector and say, well, look, these people who are working hard, who the same people we're talking about who are trying to make an honest living, that they all the blame are pushed upon their shoulders to say, because of local food and vegetables, because it's high, this is what is causing the food inflation. There are a number of different issues that we might not be looking at in terms of people who are bringing in food into the country, the freight that they're paying, the transportation, the warehousing, all these different things. And these are factors. So when you hear people from, say, Central Bank say that one of the main reasons is local
and the Central Bank governor has said that very often.
He has said it very often. And this is why from time to time we challenge these things. Yeah, I mean, and we say, well, look, what we need to do is to really understand how our country is. I mean, we have 2 seasons. We need to organize ourselves properly to understand what is happening. Are we going to say that, you know, another set of farmers is going to be flooded out and they are then going to look for compensation? I would say 99% of the times, a number of farmers who have lost crops, they, whatever they get back is way below what they have put out. Right? And sometimes it might sound like a couple $1,000 and stuff, and some people might say, well, look, look, they're getting back money and stuff. But when you look at it, I mean, the reality is in Trinidad today that because of the high cost of production, you have a farmer, say half-acre tomato. If you have to put down a half-acre tomato, it's like you have to have $25,000 in your pocket to go out there and do that. And nobody is going, as you said correctly before, nobody is going to get into a business where they're going to put out their money to invest, to make something for themselves and their family, and at the end of the day, they're running a bus. That is not proper business practices. So we ourselves, farmers themselves, we are very conscientious of all these things, because some people believe the role that farmers are playing is just going into the land and planting whatever crop and waiting till it's fruition and reap and go to market and sell and make money, but it's something more than that. It's something deeper than that. A farmer has to know about weather patterns. A farmer has to know when to prepare his or her land. A farmer has to know about their soil. They have to know about their plants. So indirectly, their soil, we call them soil scientists and plant pathologists and stuff, because they have to understand that. And when they reap this crop, they have to become marketing experts, because they have to go and compete and contend on the open market. And then they have to be their own accountants, because they have to know exactly what you were saying just now, Faz, that at the end of the day, if you put out X amount of dollars, you're not going to look to make under that. You are supposed to make something that is going to be profitable for yourselves, that will sustain your family and your family life. So this is very, very critical, and this is why I'm here this morning to talk about this whole issue about World Food Day and the understanding the slogan of United Against Hunger, because we know for a fact that over 1.2 billion people today are starving in the world. Over 30 million of these are children. But look what's happening recently in Pakistan. It's like millions and millions of people who have lost crops, who have lost animals, all these things. And all this is added to all of that, right?
At the risk of sounding callous and cruel, though, can we narrow our focus to Trinidad and Tobago and look at the food situation here in the country with the thousands and thousands of people who are unable to feed themselves? We heard recently, as recent as yesterday, the story of this mother who, all she does is drink water all day to ensure that her children are able to eat. Okay, going back to the issue of the farmers, though, there are many who argue that our farmers here in Trinidad and Tobago, they're only interested in pursuing traditional practices. They don't seem willing or even able to change the way they go about, doing their work. They don't want to explore mechanization and all of those other things. They don't want to get away from the dangerous fertilizers and so on and so forth. So what is your organization doing about that? Because
well, definitely, I mean, our organization like the National Food Crop Farmers Association, we must be leading in a fight like that to make these type of changes, to introduce new methods and techniques. But just to go back to your point, Jesse, it's not my records, it's not your records. In Trinidad and Tobago, United Nations, CSO, they're pointing and saying that over 20% of our population is living below the poverty line, and that this is something significant. And we must be able to do something in this so-called oil-rich, gas-rich nation where in the past, everything has been focused on the top only, and decisions are just being made at the top only by a few people. Right? And this is something that we have to strive to change in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's directly onto the point about how it is we are going to move the agriculture sector forward. All the different areas of agriculture, be it in vegetable and food crop production, be it in cattle, be it in sheep and goat, be it in pig, poultry, aquaculture, coconut, rice, citrus, cocoa and coffee. These are the different areas that we have to, fisheries, these are the areas that we have to address on this issue, and particularly around the day of World Food Day. We just can't wait for one day to come every year and say, well, food is an important thing, it's the way how we will survive, and let's just play around that and then move on as usual next day. It cannot be so.
Let's speak hypothetically now. If local farmers get the kind of support that they have been calling for, they have access to the lands that they need to farm the way they're supposed to, can the local farmers supply the domestic market, Trinidad and Tobago, in such a way that we will no longer have 20% of people on the poverty line probably unable to buy food, that everyone can be fed and we won't need to import food from outside? And I'm talking about not just servicing everybody in terms of families. I'm talking about servicing our food industries here, the restaurants as well as the food processors. Can local farmers do it? And if they can, why are they not?
I'm very much confident that we can do this. What has been happening over the last couple of decades in Trinidad and Tobago is there has been a real stagnation in the agriculture sector, because the agriculture sector is not being promoted as it should. This is why by governments and agencies in Trinidad and Tobago, because this is why our food import bill is over $4 billion. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. It's very lucrative. People do not want to give up this. You ask yourself, when you look at the history of Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, we must look back sometimes to see where we come from and where we are going. You ask yourself, during the days of slavery and indentureship, were we planting rice? Were we planting wheat? Were we bringing in sardine? Were we bringing in saltfish? all the different legumes, with these things. This thing has been placed in the hands of a traditional section in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's not going to be an easy task to give it up just so.
Well, okay,
let
me challenge you a bit. Hold on a second right now. Let's say I am the Agriculture Minister, Vasan Bharat. Okay, right now my head might be hot with clinical policyholders breathing down my neck, and I have to deal with them right now. But who do I listen to in the agriculture sector? Who do I take guidance from? The National Food Crop Farmers, the Agriculture Society, the sheep and goat people, the dairy farmers. Who do I listen to?
I think the minister and the ministry itself, because it's not just the minister alone, it's the ministry officials, that they are going to make or break any plan that is supposed to be implemented in Trinidad and Tobago. And at the same time, there has to be the vision and political will in the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago.
You're breaking from the question.
No, I'm not breaking.
Who do I listen to?
I'm coming straight to the point. The point is that he has to listen to the key stakeholders in the sector. He must put the farmers and their organizations at the key. You mentioned a couple organizations before.
Yes.
But there are several other organizations existing in Trinidad and Tobago, like the Cattle Farmers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the aquaculture people, the people on the Cocoa and Coffee Board. All these different areas are critical areas. These are the people we have to listen to, and we must put at the center of attention in any type of developmental plan for agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago.
Let me play Vasan Bharat.
To answer your question.
Let me play Vasan Bharat again, your good friend from the East-West corridor, and say, Mr. Deonarine, you all sort out all the issues because you're always fighting among each other. If one group appears in the media, the other 10 groups come back and say, them talking a bundle of nonsense, you got to listen to me. So all your stories out, then I will try and listen to you.
Well, I mean, just as any other area of contention in Trinidad and Tobago, there are organizations and there are certain people in the sector who might feel they might be the best thing since sweetbread and roti and tomatoes choker, and that they alone must be the voice talking for agriculture. We ourselves got ourselves in trouble a number of years ago because we were talking about widening and broadening this participation in the sector. And we were, I remember myself and Shiraz Khan around October 2008 was suspended from storming a meeting up at Cape Park Hotel where there was this so-called stakeholders meeting taking place. And when there it is, we realized that, you know, something is wrong in these deliberations. How could one person or a clique of people talk on behalf of the total agriculture sector in Trinidad and Tobago? And we took a decision. I remember myself, Shiraz Khan, Mr. Fazal Akalu, Mr. Gerard Anisset, Mr. Oscar Cadet. This is not about me, you know. This is about these people who are in different sectors. We decided, here we're going on. We're going to make a statement. We're going to go up to Cape Park Hotel, go up in the elevator and go straight into the room.
Storm the people
and tell them, well, look, here what's going on. Are we serious or are we not serious? Or are we going to continue in this same vein of the way how things are operating? And, you know, it's like some people, like the last government, some people were very tight with them, conducting their policies and stuff. And we realized that, look, something definitely is wrong. Okay, well, hold that for a moment, Norris. We have to go to a break. We're going to continue on that point and get a better sense as to whether or not there will be any indication of either unity or getting the real people who might be interested in agriculture. In fact, those who will say that the real people are already the ones promoting agriculture quite effectively in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll continue that discussion with Norris Deonarine when we come back.